Welcome back to the Trenchless Table, guys. Today we have one of the leading engineers at Jones and Henry Engineers, and he's been there for over 14 years, but he has over 20 years in total in the engineering field. And in the little spare time that he actually does have, he is the writer, producer, on-camera personality, and we just found out videographer for his own series called Built to Last on YouTube. This series covers aging infrastructures, all things cool. So if you have a chance to check that out at the end of this, we'll be talking a little bit more about that. And you know, a man with that much passion and knowledge about infrastructure can't just stop there. So he is also a committee member on the Covington-Cincinnati Suspension Bridge Committee. Cole and I talked a little bit about that yesterday, and what's interesting is Cole lived in Cincinnati and saw that bridge, walked over it all the time, and actually went out and watched this little episode on that, right?
Yeah.
So pretty cool to have him sitting here with us. So Ted Bennett, welcome to the Trenchless Table. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to kick it off with Cole because Cole is pretty excited to have Ted on. He's talked to you in the past, had some meetings. Cole deals with engineers all the time. He was like, I need to ask about this. I need to talk to him about this. I need to figure out why the heck some know what they're doing.
Oh, man. So to backtrack, though, Ted, I am curious. So many years at Jones and Henry. How did you get there? In a quick helicopter view, coming out, you mentioned Detroit. You spent some time in Detroit. Tell us how you got from kid to kind of director of infrastructure with Jones and Henry, a prominent engineer throughout the Midwest.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Wapakoneta, Ohio, so I'm a small town kid. Bryan, Ohio, is a lot like where I grew up, very small town, but there are a lot of opportunities. Growing up in a small town, you get to know people, and you're exposed to a wide range of things instead of maybe in a bigger town where you're sort of pigeonholed or whatever. So I grew up in Wapakoneta, went to Ohio Northern, did 4 years there. There wasn't a lot of jobs when I got out of school, so I took the one job that was offered to me. It was actually in Detroit, and Detroit, Michigan is completely different from Wapakoneta, Ohio, so it was definitely a different experience. But, exposing me to a little bit bigger environment was consulting engineering. I did that for 2-3 years, and then I went down and worked for the Northwestern Water and Sewer District in Bowling Green for 3 years, and so I was working on the public side of things, and then after that, I took a job at the city of Bowling Green, and I was an engineer in the city's engineering department for 6 years. So here I've almost amassed 10 years of public side work, and so it gives you a different perspective on things. But I always liked what I did there in Detroit, so I wanted to get back to that. And so an opportunity came up with Jones and Henry almost 15 years ago, and I thought, well, this is for me, and I haven't looked back since. So,
Yeah.
Hey, can I get one quick question?
Sure.
So one of the things that a lot of people want to know is like that high school to engineering. Did you always know you were going to be an engineer?
Well, let's see. My father was a civil engineer.
Okay.
And I feel like maybe I had a similar story to you, Dustin, that I could be anything in the world I wanted to be as long as I was a civil engineer. I don't know.
Absolutely.
It definitely was. I was steered that way, and
Gotcha.
I think that was, all in all, I think that's worked out very, very well. So
So for some of our younger listeners, we hear a lot.
Yep.
I just want to be an engineer, right?
That's the hot thing.
That's the hot thing right now.
I just want to be an engineer.
Yeah.
What kind?
What kind? What do you want to do with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you give them a little piece of advice on what that looks like? How do you figure out what type of engineering you want to go into?
Let's see. For me, my dad was a civil engineer. And I really thought my dad was like Superman because I watched what he did, and I'm like, we would drive around, and he's like, I designed that bridge, I designed that building, I worked on that road project. It seemed like he did everything, and I'm like, that's really cool. I think I would like to do that. So, and it's neat too because my dad is like my mentor. Like I still call him and talk to him all the time. It's neat to have that person with a close relationship that you can call for anything. So. For me, I think it was always going to be civil engineering, and I'm not sure when I decided that, but I'm very happy with what I've done there. Yeah.
No, that's great. And what are the other types of engineering jobs that you can hold in this space?
As far as like what kind of engineering or
Yeah. So what would like, so you say civil engineering, are there other types of engineering
Oh, sure.
that you could have in the trenchless space specifically?
I would think that mechanical engineers would be involved in like designing when you guys build out a truck and that sort of thing, you know, figuring out how things fit, and you have to have electrical obviously. And, you know, your truck that where you do your repair work is going to have a heater. And so you're going to have to size a furnace or some kind of heating apparatus and maybe cooling, air conditioning. So really there's a place for all sorts of engineers in the trenchless space for sure.
Okay.
That is a big topic when we have young people, and Cole deals with a lot of young graduating seniors and juniors, freshmen. He's a coach on the soccer team, so he gets a lot of experience with the younger generation getting ready to leave high school and talking about these things. And that is one thing that's been a hot topic is, I want to be an engineer.
Yeah.
I want to go into construction management. I want to do something, but they don't know how to focus. And so I think dialing in on some of those key things is critical for some of them, because they just, maybe you're going to go and spend a ton of time to figure it out without knowing the why.
I think the biggest thing is to get as much experience as you can. You know, I've had jobs that maybe weren't my favorite jobs, but I if nothing else, I learned that maybe that's not what I want to do for the rest of my career. But at least I had that experience, and I can say, okay, well, I did learn something there. So I think trying to take something from each opportunity to try to figure out where your path lies. It's a lot of trial and error. You know, you can't learn it without doing it.
Exactly.
And it's so, to a younger kid, not to spend the entire time on the next generation, but it is a big part of the Trenchless Table. Understanding the importance, like I guess it was ingrained in you with how you grew up. So maybe my better question would be, how are you ingraining it in some of the younger guys and gals at Jones and Henry of the work that we're doing, though it may be buried and nobody sees it, it's so important and it's vital. How are you instilling that sort of mantra in what the younger generation of Jones and Henry is bringing in?
I think it's all about sort of quality, the quality of the work that you're doing, and making sure that you understand what it is you're doing and how it pertains to, you know, down the road. You know, I think about designing things like drill paths for like a directional drill job. And I have seen a lot of people do them in ways that are maybe not as detailed as what we do. But it's important to give the contractor something that's buildable so that when they show up on the site, it can actually be built, instead of, you know, well, back to the drawing board. Here's these, you know, reasons why this won't work.
Okay.
So,
No, that helps. Kind of shifting gears, because you mentioned a project. I'm curious to really kick us off. What's been the most memorable project in the vastness of Ted Bennett's career as an engineer that you can remember?
I would say, you know, just off the top of my head, I would say it was the Ford Road pump station project that I did for Northwestern Water and Sewer District. That ended. It ended in early 2024, but that was like a 6-year in the making kind of project. It was a large pump station. I think there was almost $8 million of investment made there in building that. It was
Ted, large is an understatement. 50 feet deep, right?
It was 50 feet deep,
And 50-foot diameter?
Basically, yeah.
And so this, by, you know, it was a big structure, is an understatement. This is a humongous structure. So don't undercredit what you built.
And to disclaimer, we didn't pay you to say that, because we were a part of that. We were privileged enough to be a part of that project as well. And if you were to ask anybody within this building of one of our most memorable projects, it'd probably be in that top 5 mix.
Sure.
I was actually hired a couple weeks before we started that, and all I heard was Ford Road, Ford Road, Ford Road. And I'm trying to learn this industry. I'm like, what the hell's going on at Ford Road? Fast forward to see what that all took to get that completed was really remarkable. What was warranted in Maumee at that time?
Well, that
to create
that project, it almost goes back nearly 20 years from now. The Northwestern Water and Sewer District did a renovation of the project in 2003 or 4 when I still worked at the district, and I remember thinking this would be cool to work on when this gets the next revision to it. And so I always kept in the back of my mind that maybe this will be a project I get to work on. And as it started to come about, the district was looking for, you know, an engineer, and they sort of came to me and they said, hey, would you be interested in working on this? And I said, well, of course. And, you know, as time goes on, it's like, wow, this is really cool. We're basically planning the entire future of the east side of Perrysburg for all of their sewer needs. And so it was just really, really neat to work on something that I saw as a young person as something I want to do, and then to get to actually do it. So it was really neat because that is the future for Northwest Water Sewer District over on the east side of Perrysburg.
And what's interesting is we live in a space where a lot of the stuff we do is crucial but not seen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of those things that people probably drive by that, live by it. They have no idea what it is or even that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty cool that that's a go-to for you in your bank of projects and also ours. But also it's not a huge building that everybody sees every single day.
That's a lot of what we do is it's buried. You know, I always make the joke that I bury my mistakes, sort of offhandedly. But
Don't worry, so do we.
So I was going to say, so do we.
But in a way, you know, infrastructure is this thing that's hidden, but it's so important that we just, I think it gets taken for granted a lot. And I think doing things like this gets infrastructure back to the forefront of what people are seeing. I think it's cool you see History Channel doing things like that as well. So.
Who had the foresight and the vision for that? That you're saying they set up that whole side of town for the future. That's a big foresight. That's a big, because they're a growing community, lots going on, big investment underground. Mm-hmm. It's not like you can go fix it and you're not going to upgrade next year to the next better computer because it's bigger, faster, stronger, and it's smaller because our world doesn't ever get smaller. It gets bigger and deeper and wider. So did you guys have the vision for that? Was that a Northwest Water vision? Who started the vision of, hey, we need to have this for the future?
Well, I think it was an iterative process, like most of what we do in engineering. The original plan was to try to reuse the old station, which I think is always a good move. If there's a way to reuse what someone's already invested, let's do that. Unfortunately, in this case, what was there was just too small, and we were sort of hemmed in by properties on both sides, and we couldn't really do the renovation and do it justice. So if we did we could have done the renovation, but it would have only gotten us 20 years. And so we stepped back from it and said, well, let's do the 100-year project. And the only way to do that is to go to a new site and just completely, start over. That's sort of the opposite of built to last in a way. But there are times where it makes sense, and there's times where it doesn't. And I think for the customer's money, when I was younger in that year 2000 project where they did the sort of the renovation, well, clearly that maybe didn't last as well as it should have, because here we are back again in 20 years trying to redo it again. So I think lesson learned there, let's do this right this time.
So if we were to call Ford Road a great project, I'm curious, what else goes into creating a great project from an engineering perspective? Because to name a few, you have cost and budget, you have owners' wants or desires or what they think they need, environmental regulations and time frame, the list goes on. What does it take to put that all together and say, this is it? This is what we're going with?
I think, you hit on the big three are always time, cost, and quality is sort of the big three. And they always say, well, you can have two, but you can't have the third one. So if you want something cheaply, it's gonna be, the time and quality are going to be accordingly, right? You can't have a good quality project in a short period of time. So the neat thing is Northwest gave us the time to do the engineering and kind of work through the options. So the time was certainly good. The budget was there. They wanted to spend the money. They went for the full project instead of someone coming in at the end and just cutting out like 50% of the project. We see this a lot where you'll design a project and then by the time it gets to construction, someone's value engineered it down to not even a shell of itself. So giving it the time to work through the projects. I always say that great projects take time, and the best projects that I've worked on are the ones that have taken the longest. Sadly, the owners are like, well, get it done. But I'm a runner in the morning. There's something about having enough morning runs to solve some of these problems, that you've worked through it, and it's like, okay, this is the way we want to go. So time is certainly important, and the budget is important too. We have to have enough money to build the project the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, as dudes, we're simple creatures. We think best running or maybe in the shower for some. Yeah. Not runner. Is it because like Lee said, we talk with engineers a lot, but we don't kind of get on an interpersonal level. It's more a surface level of what they can give me or I can give them, and then we go our separate ways. I don't actually know the ins and outs of when you're going to a municipality, are you given a big, good, better, best option? Or how does that consultation look up front for contractors, for young engineers, or just inquiring minds that might be interested in engineering? What does that look like from conception?
I think the big thing is to sit down and have a meeting and try to understand what's the goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? And so that we can actually solve the problem. I think sometimes it's like you go to the doctor and you say, well, I have this problem. And the doctor starts asking you questions. And I know everyone gets frustrated, like, I'm just for the problem I came in for. But that's part of what we do is I want to make sure I understand what the desired sort of future state of the agency is so that we can give them a solution that gets them there. Because sometimes maybe their own sort of plan of it would get them like 80% of the way there. But as folks with some experience in doing this, we try to make sure that we've talked through all the options. And then, we'll take those options and we'll go back and sort of price them out and say, well, here's the different ways we could go about doing this, and what makes sense for everybody here.
And how are you staying on top of, like, staying on the forefront of new technology and new applications with everything changing so quick?
I try to just to be out there, and I watch what happens on LinkedIn, of course, and I go to a lot of trade shows and try to keep an eye on what goes on. A lot of contractors have good ideas, so I try not to negate those out of the bat. Sometimes someone will say, hey, what if we did this a different way? And a lot of times those ideas are better than mine. I mean, that's the value of what we do in this business, is that it's a collaborative effort. So just trying to listen, when folks have ideas to add on to projects, I think. Yeah.
I think that comes with a little bit of experience, because I will say not everybody is willing to listen. And so we appreciate that when people are, because sometimes we work in a lot of different communities, and a lot of communities do things differently. And the way that technology has progressed with just pipe alone, we used to put a lot of ductile iron pipe in, and then we went to sort of like PVC pipe where we could pull in place PVC, and then out came fusible, and now really HDP is really coming to its own and really taking the forefront, and replacing a lot of those. But we still see a lot of people kind of using some antiquated thought processes, and they don't want to change. They're reluctant to change, and I get it. Change is hard. When you have a tough community that you really think there's a better solution, and they want something that's pre-2025 ideology, how do you convince them or prove it to them? Because there's a lot of times we have conversations and say, we should maybe look at this a little bit different. We could save you money doing something different type of pipe, different direction, and they don't want to hear it.
For me, the biggest, I'm always a big believer in just, show me the results. And a lot of times I don't want them to take my word for it. So I will take them and I'll say, let's go somewhere. Let's see someone who's done this before. And you talk to them, you ask them the questions that you're concerned about, because they can tell you, was that an issue or not? You talk about different types of pipe. I remember, when I worked at the city of Bowling Green, we were stuck on DR14. Like, we're using DR14 water pipe. We were the only people that I could find that was using DR14. Well, they were worried the plastic wasn't strong enough.
I wasn't going to point any fingers, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope they're not doing. I think we changed. I can't remember. But, we decided to back it off to the next pipe size, thickness down eventually. But I said, look, Northwestern Water and Sewer District is putting in hundreds of miles of this pipe every year, not having a problem. Call around to all the other communities, and let's get there. Let's not spend good money after bad here. If that was maybe at the time, maybe that was a smart move, but we've gotten beyond that. That material is proven. Let's go with it. So yeah,
it can be challenging.
Yeah, but take them and show them. That way they're not. Don't trust me, the people who have the experience. Talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that vein, this can be taken poorly. I know I don't say this in a bad light, but we do talk to a lot of engineers, and it's very easy and quick to be able to make a determination of, wow, this girl or this guy is put together, knows what they're doing, has a direction. But it is also equal and opposite to understand, man, I don't think they quite know a direction they're going here. Or maybe they're too spread out or too busy. My question I want to get into is, what makes a great engineer?
That's a great question. And I think I think there's got to be a creative aspect. You can't be locked into just the way that things have been done before. So you have to be willing, because the projects you're being asked to do are things that have never been done before. Like in large, what I always laugh because, mechanical engineers get to make scaled models of their projects. We build 1-to-1 functional scale models that are actually the, Ford Road. We didn't build a model of it. We just built the project. I think some creativity is important. I think some humility to recognize that maybe you don't have all the answers. I know when I came out of college, I knew everything. Like, it's funny how I've actually regressed. I don't actually know anything after I've done more and more. Some humility is good. I think you have to be willing to put the work in. They talk a lot about work-life balance, and I get it. But I do think that to really achieve to the top, you're going to have to put a lot of work in outside of your 8-hour day. I know as an engineer growing up myself, as a very young engineer, there were things I didn't understand, and the only way for me to have enough time to learn it was to go home, take the textbook, and sit down with it. You learned the lesson in college and you learned it for the test, but you never learned to apply it. And so once you start getting some practical experience, you're like, okay, there's more to this than just getting the answer the teacher wants. So you really got to be a hungry person to really work to get the knowledge that you need.
That's probably true in all fields.
I was just thinking the same thing. And then, do you guys have a mentorship program when you have new engineers that come out of college? Because you're right. Contractors, we see them, right? We know, hey, this is what the textbook says, but it doesn't always work that way. And there's a lot of years of experience out there running around. I hope we get to use it before it all leaves the industry, but a lot of industry head knowledge is retiring out. So do you guys have a mentorship program for new engineers then?
Now, in a way, the entire engineering profession is sort of a mentor. It's sort of based on mentoring. Yep. So you go to college and you get your degree. It takes 4 years to get your degree in engineering, and then you take a test, right, when you get out of school that proves that, okay, I know the fundamentals of engineering, and that gets you like an engineering and training qualification. And then after that, you have to work for 4 more years in the industry before you can pass and become a professional engineer. So the industry itself is sort of based on mentoring, and that 4 years has to be done under the supervision of another professional engineer. So in order to get licensed, you have to work with someone. As a firm, we've got a young professionals program, and we bring in a lot of young engineers, and we've been hiring a lot of young engineers. And what's cool with the size that Jones and Henry is, they get to work with the principals pretty much hand in hand, because we don't really have a middle-aged. I guess I would be a middle-aged engineer. We don't have very many. I don't know what happened to the middle-aged people in our industry, because they're.
He looked at you, Dustin, when he said that.
We're the same. We're probably the same.
We're probably the same age.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out.
We are both in the middle age, stuck in the middle.
We're looking for all the Gen Xers like me are like, where are the rest of the Gen Xers in this business? They're all boomers, or millennials, or Gen Z. Like, I don't know where everybody in the middle aged in this industry is. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities.
As long as you didn't call me a millennial, we might have had to arm wrestle, but.
I am, but I'm on the good side of the millennial age.
That's why I was looking at you.
I know you are.
You mentioned creativity, and I think there's more that we could pull out from that. From your history, when's something you're most proud of, or man, that was the most creative thing I've ever been a part of or thought of myself on a project?
That's a great question, Cole, and I'm thinking here, what would be something that was creative?
Not on the spot or anything.
Like always. I guess for me, I guess maybe it's a lot of the stuff that I do outside of work, that I try to find ways to give back and share what I know. I created this Aquifer YouTube channel because I wanted to. I felt like I had been taught all this stuff, and I learned this stuff, and I want to share it with other people. And, I can share it with 2 or 3 people if I meet them, but with YouTube and LinkedIn and, posting things on blogs, you can share with sort of an infinite number of people. And I guess that's a lot of my creative outlet now is put towards, generating things that might help someone else who's struggling with a problem. That a lot of times the things that I put on there are things that I was like, oh, I'm struggling with this. I should probably write this down so that I know how to do this later, and then maybe someone else can learn from it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Aquifer or Built to Last, are they the same or are they different?
Aquifer is the channel, and then Built to Last is the series of episodes.
Okay.
So there's more on the Aquifer than just Built to Last. There's some engineering, like how to do's and that sort of thing.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so Aquifer obviously play on the engineering water side of things, and Built to Last is, what are you doing there?
So basically, it's a series of episodes where I had this idea of what's wrong in our industry, right? We build things, and I talked about that project that only lasted 20 years, and I'm working on something. I was working on something a couple years ago that was built in 1995, and now it's being completely replaced. We're talking, several tens of thousands of feet of sewer, pump stations, and everything, like completely like gone. And you think back and you're like, well, what did the designers do? Maybe they didn't get it wrong, but maybe there was just sort of a misplaced expectation of the future. And so I thought, well, what can we do to avoid doing that? And so the only way to find out what you don't know is to go learn it. And so I decided to go find some infrastructure that had lasted for a long time. And I've been to 23 different places, actually more, because there's many episodes in the works that haven't even been put together. And the themes of why things last sort of become more evident. And so that's my goal, is to share those lost ideas with our industry in hopes of getting folks to think a little bit more long term than maybe just the short term solution.
Yeah, I think that's a great testimony to engineering, Built to Last, right? Play on the word of the duration of time. So what is the oldest? I know you were at the big house and you were looking for the biggest, or maybe the oldest pump station in the country at one point in time. So what's the oldest infrastructure, bridge, pump station, building that you've done a Built to Last on that's still up and running today?
Gotcha. It was there was a bridge built in 1846 for a canal in Lackawaxen, Pennsylvania, which is as fun to say as it is to travel to. Although
I watched that one.
Although I don't know if everybody that went along would agree with that, but it was built in 1846 as a canal bridge across the Delaware River, and the Delaware River sort of splits New York and Pennsylvania. And the Delaware River is serious business. Like, it's a big river and it's flowing fast. I was there in the spring, and you're getting the snow melt out of northern New England. Well, anyways, they were trying to build an aqueduct to bring coal from Pennsylvania into New York. And a way to do that is, back then you didn't travel by road. It would take forever. You couldn't bring enough merchandise or goods in a substantial distance. So they built these canals, and while the canals have to cross rivers, and so they built bridges across rivers, which is, these days we're like, that's crazy. But anyway, so these bridges crossed these rivers in 4 locations, and this bridge was actually built by John Roebling, who, if you hear that name, well, you think, okay, I've heard that. Brooklyn Bridge, he's the guy. He actually built the bridge in Cincinnati, the Roebling Bridge, which still exists. So that was one of his very first bridges was working there. And, it's really cool because it's built with natural materials. It's wood. It's a wooden suspension bridge. Like the truss framing is all made of wood, and they've got a steel cable, of course, to suspend the bridge. And the bridge is built out of limestone, another natural material. And the designer himself was planning for more than just the canal. Like, he had this long-term vision that, like, this is not gonna fall down. This is gonna last longer than anybody. They even asked John Roebling at one point. They said, "How long will your designs last, John?" And he said, "Forever." That was his plan. Like, he wasn't building it for today, tomorrow, or the next day. It was forever. Like, this is never coming down. And that bridge lasted from 1846 until about 1896, and then the canals were sort of done. Railroads sort of surpassed the canals in their ability to carry goods, long distance and lots of material. But whoever was in charge of the bridge said, well, the bridge is still here. Let's convert it into a road bridge. And it still exists today as a roadway bridge that you can drive across with your coworkers and scare them to death. Because it's narrow and it's like rated for 10 tons, but it's not going anywhere. And it's really cool just to see that stuff and think, well, someone who was an engineer planned this, and this is still here today. So that's really cool.
Is my memory right? Did he restart that bridge multiple times because it was off, or
That was the Roebling Bridge in Cincinnati.
Okay.
But yeah, it stopped because of the panic of 1857, and then they got going again, and then they ran out of money. Then the Civil War started, and then they stopped because they couldn't get any labor. And then the Confederate Army was threatening to invade Kentucky, and they said, "Oh, we need to get this going again because we got to get soldiers from Cincinnati into Kentucky." And they finally got it done almost 10 years later in 1867. But I mean, there's a testament to projects. Don't give up just because it stopped, you know.
Find a way.
Yeah.
So when does Built to Last go international? Because, I mean, you're talking Roman Empire, kind of the kings of building things to last, right?
Yeah, I'd had that question last week, and I'd love to do it. Maybe someday, you know, if we can get there. You know, it's a user-funded community. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
as always, contribute. We have a Venmo set up.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yep.
no, that's great. And what
Make
a great
sure
way
you
to bring.
subscribe and Venmo.
Yeah, subscribe. Make sure you turn the bell on too. That's the thing. So no, what a great way to bring light to this industry, what you do, obviously showing your passion there. It's kind of what we were trying to do with this, just bringing light to trenchless industry. So what we've talked a little bit about the past, we've talked about your history. So what now do you see happening in the next 5 to 10 years of infrastructure and trenchless technology, just all of that space? Where do you see this going?
Certainly AI is the elephant in the room. We're not sure what AI means to this industry. I think we're all kind of just on the cusp of trying to figure out what to use it for. I myself am looking at some ways to try to involve it into our work, but also, sort of carefully. We don't want to just jump into it and then lose what we're doing. So we're trying to make sure that the human element and the sort of the designer's intuition still plays into it. I think there's no question AI will be important. There's certainly a drive to do things faster and differently. We see a lot of alternate delivery methods being talked about. I think that's reasonable to consider that. If you look at the way a lot of things were built in the past, a lot of times they were built by a consortium of engineer contractor all as one. So that's not, we talk about alternate delivery. It really isn't all that different from the way things used to get done. So those are certainly some things. You see 3D modeling of structures becoming, more and more prevalent. Ford Road was our very first 3D modeled project that we had done sort of from start to finish. We had done a couple before, but this was the first real large scale one. And I think there was a testament to that being successful. The workers were like, wow, this is right. There's no dimensional problems. Well, there can't be because the model is drawn like it really is. Mm-hmm. So,
and you were doing that, and you were 3D modeling in AutoCAD or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So not like a printed 3D model.
Exactly. Yeah. It's in the computer, of course, but certainly computing will be another driver. It's sort of it's a big deal. We'll continue to model and try to improve what we do. And I think it's important. We talked about a lot of technology there. I think we have to remember the people part, that we have to still work as teams and communicate and be humble and sort of
Yeah, absolutely. On the question kind of came to my mind as you were framing your question, Lee, is we're at the Trenchless Table, and so how has the trenchless industry evolution of it helped and changed what municipalities are doing? Because we can't always prioritize new projects because we got so many old buried assets under the ground that are aged, waiting for it to spring a leak or suck all the ground in around it and take houses with it. So how has the trenchless technology industry changed and evolved civil engineering?
I think trenchless has definitely given us a whole nother, it's like another weapon in the arsenal, right? And it's a really, really powerful one, working in areas where, like Dustin's talking about, where things are sort of built up, and now you can drill under things. You can do a directional drill. You can connect communities that were sort of difficult. We did a water line between Bowling Green and Waterville under the Maumee River. Well, that would have been unheard of, 50 years ago. I remember when we were talking about the project, someone's like, well, you're going to have to just dig up the river and just put it under the river. And it's like, this is the Maumee River. This is serious business. You can't just really build it. I mean, you could do it. They would have done it back in the day.
Bunch of sandbags.
Yeah, you could do it, but the cost would have been astronomical. Imagine the environmental involvement. I mean, you can't even fathom that. So, trenchless work has really, I think it's helped the industry to advance in a way, and it's advancing in a way that's sort of thoughtful and economical because we're not digging up a bunch of stuff. We can drill under things, we can pipe burst. You can make use of utilities that are already there. It's really exciting to see what options are there for engineers to choose from. The big thing is getting engineers to understand that those options are there. Education.
Education is always important, and it's an evolution. So we've been doing drilling and trenchless work for 25 years, and it is becoming more popular. And then the inclusion of cured in place pipe and rehabilitation with coatings has evolved the industry quite a bit, and so we see more of it. But I look at all of the cost. I mean, there's billions of dollars of problems underground. I don't think people are ready for the problems that are there that they're not willing to talk about yet.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Is that just my perception, or is that reality in some of these municipalities that just haven't started a rehab project to maintain what they have? Some communities are very forward thinking. Mm-hmm. I can think of a few, and then there's some that I just never see a project get done in, and it's like sooner or later somebody's house is caving in.
Yeah, I think it's educational, and maybe that's some of what we do on the front end of projects is we're talking to all these communities. We're around, and I think it's important for us to remind them that there is more than just dig it up and replace it. There are a lot of options available. So maybe that's something for engineers to help to educate. And you guys do a great job of it too. You're present at all the trade shows, talking to people, and I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're planning a project, is there a baseline for you guys and the municipalities to say, we're expecting this much growth in this area? So when you're rehabbing a project or building a new project, are you saying, okay, we're expecting 4,000 more households in this over the next 10 years, so we might as well build it like this? Is there a baseline for that, or is it project by project?
Yeah, it depends on what we're doing. If you're working in an area where there'll be no growth, you're working in a subdivision where the pipes will never get any larger. It's definitely we're looking at rehab, as opposed to unless it's really bad, we'll replace it. But if you're building something like Ford Road where it's got to serve more than just what's there. We use some guidelines that have been developed industry-wide for trying to plan out how does area develop and how will water consumption and production be generated in those areas for sure. Yeah.
And that kind of dances around the question I'm curious about, and it's maybe a loaded question, but when you and your team sit down with the municipality, how do you decide through replacement and rehabilitation of what's currently there?
I think we try to get a handle on what the cost is, of course, and then we're trying to understand as engineers and working with contractors as well, what service life exists beyond what's here. Do we want to do a 10-year Band-Aid and then that gives it, maybe sometimes you need time. I think back to that project with Ford Road. The neat thing about that job was, that it only lasted 20 years, but that 20 years gave them time to plan on where do we put this thing? Because this is hemmed in an area that's already developed. So we had to find land in order to build it. So sometimes that rehab option isn't a bad idea, to go for it if you need to buy yourself some time. Every situation is different, and really the analysis is different. And I think that's probably why it's important to try to find engineers that have a lot of experience, because they can say, well, we've done all these things before. This is the way to go because of these other things that have come about. So certainly having the right engineer, maybe kind of talking back to what makes a good engineer, is having the right one for the project, and the right one for project A isn't necessarily the right one for B and C. Everyone has sort of their own expertise and specialty. Yeah.
And then where engineers go, not to drag this out, but I'm very curious. You said LinkedIn, you said trade shows. Where else are you guys going for continued education, for just understanding what's going on in the industry, of what truly works and what might be theory? Where are you guys going?
We have a lot of folks will come to the office and do like lunch and learns and sort of demonstrate new technology. That's big for the folks in our treatment division to stay on top of what new technologies are out there. We have done things where we've advertised for information about what technologies are available. We're doing a big biosolids project up in Kalamazoo, and they actually put an advertisement out in the news. Who's available? Who can do this? So I think the best way to go about finding that thing is be creative. I myself, I read a lot of news and I stay involved in like what's going on in the world. And a lot of times you'll read about a project and like, well, I want to know more about that. And the web is a great resource. You can go online and research, well, what are they doing to build this pipeline? How are they building this? And that sort of thing. And just trying to stay current with all the things going on and just use all of your available senses to do that.
So since you have the floor on that and you have a company sitting across the table from you that you work with, what could companies do better to help you guys understand, know, and be in the know about those types of projects?
Yeah, I think just keep us in the loop as things develop. If you have new ways to do things, let us know so that when we're having those discussions about rehab or replacement, maybe we think, well, the only thing you can do is this. But in reality, there's more. Like you guys have done something somewhere else and that worked. And yeah, I think it's just, staying in sort of constant contact and, put a lot of posts out on social media of things that you're done. Because I think this industry, while it is competitive, I get it, but it's competitive to a point. I've never found anybody unwilling to help. Even a fellow engineer is generally willing to help because this is an industry where at some point you're going to need help from someone. So you gotta work together. And I think that's the key.
Co-opetition
and what was the other word? Frenemy?
Yeah, I mean, frenemy is a good one, but
co-opetition was the one we just talked about. Yeah.
Can you go ahead and spell that one for me?
That's a Lee question, not a Dustin.
CEO-opetition.
There it is. There it is. Ted, last question from me. Do you sleep at night?
Oh,
when
yeah.
do you?
Yeah.
You gotta. It's an extensive day to day that you maintain. I'm curious. You say you wake up in the morning and run. Is that what keeps you going? Is that what keeps you grounded? What keeps you centered? Or
my kids and my family are great.
Yeah.
They remind me that there's times to just shut the computer and at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, you shut the computer and that's it. You're done. I used to be an 80-hour a week person, but that's not very healthy. And you can work that way for a while, but then eventually you burn out and you're useless. So I think having some things outside of your work day, and I have great people that work with me, and those individuals carry a lot of the load on the projects. So I certainly couldn't do it without them.
Well, great. That's a pretty great way to wrap it up. So do you have anything else you want people to know?
No, I can't think of anything. Just, check out my social media if it's something you're interested. LinkedIn, check out the Aquifer on YouTube, watch the Built to Last series, tell all your friends about it, subscribe, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll link it all below in this video. So Dustin, are you good on your end?
It's great. I appreciate the things that we've learned from you over the years and the opportunity to work together on projects throughout, really kind of Southern Michigan and Ohio, Indiana. And so it's been a great partnership and hopefully that we've added value to projects that you've done and worked hard for your customers and communities. So we look forward to continuing to do that. And we just appreciate you having the perspective you do to bring things to light and just move the ball forward. Because there's not a lot of us in this realm, in this age bracket,
That's
as
true.
we discussed.
Yes.
So we're in it together. Well, thanks for everything that you do, Ted, for the community and for engineers and those around you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted, for coming on, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.